And we are live here on Plus One EXP's Roll for Content channel. My name is Tony Vasinda, and normally I come to you in the guise of Chief Alchemist here at Plus One EXP. And though that's still who I am, I'm also going to talk to you today specifically as Czar, head of brands at BrandFox LLC, which is a shipping company that now owns Plus One and another company that I started that I work for day in, day out. It's expanded a lot of our things, but the reason that is because normally, though, we cover specifically content about indie RPGs, both playing them, how to play them, what it looks like to play with the designers, interviews, other types of content that focuses on RPGs. We also do a lot of educational content on how to do your RPG practice better if you're a designer. One of the most requested conversations in all of that over the course of the last couple months has been, how do I ship my zines? How do I manage shipping my products all over the world, all over the country, to all the different places that it needs to go? And so today, that is what we are diving into. We are at a little bit of a different time today. Normally I broadcast in the evenings, but I'm actually going to be driving across a couple of states this evening. So I'm going over to Ohio from here in Philly. So we're doing this a little bit early today. It will be available as a video on demand also too. But I'm very excited to have you. Wait a minute. That's not the right title. That's not what this page is called. What? Wait a minute. What's going on? Hold on a second. SolaStream. Browse. Done. Woo! There we go. Sorry about that, folks. I know that may have confused some people. Not talking about how to build their page. We're talking about how to ship your game. We're going to cover a couple different things, not just how you can work with a shipping partner to do it. Keegan, hop on in. Not just how you can work with a shipping partner, but also how you can do things at home if you want to. At what point it makes sense to move from one type of process to another. I also left some stuff across the room that I'm going to have to grab at some point in the near future. So that's going to be a fun little juggling act that I am going to undertake in just a moment. But I'm very excited to sit down and talk with you about it. However, let's start by thanking our sponsor for this stream, thanking our sponsor who's helping make this happen, and that is Constellation RPG Zine Anthology. And we're actually going to look at this project in relationship to shipping also too, because they did some really great things. But if you're not familiar with this RPG Zine Anthology, it's especially appropriate to share during Zine Month because it's a lot of zine length content, 12 of them to be precise, by 12 different authors. It's all being put together and bound as a hardback. You can go pick it up right now. A lot of these projects are some projects by some of my favorite creators. We've played a number of them on stream. I'm super excited to be for them to be working with Hit Point Press to do this. Visa Visage by Max Lander is absolutely phenomenal. This World Is Not Yours by Travis Hill is one of my favorites. I love Kyle Tam's Mariah. The religious themes of sacrifice in it are absolutely phenomenal. Gourmet Street, 100 Red Scales, and Flames in the Abyss are all projects that I am deeply in love with. And then there's a bunch of new stuff that I've never even seen before, some of which has never even been out. You can go to ttrpg.link/ConstellationKS to check out that project. It only has a couple days left, but if you are looking to discover your new favorite RPG, this is a great place to look. They are currently right over $11,000. I'd love to see them get up to at least $15,000. This is a great campaign Sebastian Yui put together. But We're going to come back and look at it a little bit later. Thank you, Keegan, for dropping that link in the chat. We're going to come back a little bit later to look specifically at how they handled shipping information in this, because it is very good. It's very salient to today's conversation. They didn't ask me to do that, but anytime we accept money from somebody, it's because we actually want to support the project already anyways, and are going to dive in a little bit deeper anytime we can. So thanks for the folks over at Hit Point Press who make phenomenal products, for putting together this anthology, for investing in the indie community, and for Constellation KS especially. So let's talk a little bit more about shipping. Some things that we want to understand is there are numerous ways to handle shipping, and we're not just talking about carriers, and a lot of it's going to depend on the scale of your project. But you might want to ship from home. You might want to invest in some equipment for shipping at home. You might just want to do it all by hand, or you might want to work with a shipping partner. And that's one of the big questions that a lot of people ask. But before we even get there, the number one thing that you need to consider is how much is shipping going to cost, and should I include the cost of shipping in my product and in my project? Overwhelmingly, the answer to the first one is incredibly varied. Shipping costs are going to vary a whole lot, though we're going to hit some basic numbers you're going to need to be aware of in just 1 second. For the second question, should I include the cost of shipping in my campaign? If you're using Kickstarter or Indiegogo or a lot of funding platforms that will take that money and include it in the total cost funded, the answer ubiquitously 100% absolutely is no. You should not do that. Also, if you are not ready to print your project immediately after your Kickstarter is done, I would not include shipping almost on any other platform that you're looking at. I would always look at other ways to charge shipping at a later date. The number one reason for that, as the major cost that you're going to experience no matter what method you use for shipping, and a lot of people know this, the cost of shipping is incredibly volatile. It's gone up and up and up over the course of the last couple of years. It used to cost me $10 to send a couple of pound package to Canada. It now costs $20 to send pretty much anything to Canada. Even within the US, we went from $3 to $4 for your average priority mail package to now that being in the $8 to $10 range over the course of 3 years. Shipping increases were just announced for this year. They actually weren't that dramatic. Some things went up a little bit, some things went down a little bit. The biggest swing either direction was about 11 cents either way. And that's most of what we'll see from USPS for the rest of the year. For UPS and for FedEx, those rates can vary any time of the year as they choose to, and there are always additional surcharges and other things they build in, so you're going to always want to quote those as you go. But you should not include shipping in the funding of your project unless you are immediately ready to ship after the project, and even then, it's a very questionable process. So what are the things we need to know to come up with our initial shipping costs? The two things that you're going to need to know are your weights. How much does your project weigh? Putting it on a scale, and you're like, may think, Tony, I don't have my project yet. Order a game or take a game off your shelf that is the exact same size and dimensions, uses a similar print format, or that's pretty close, and weigh that book. That's going to be the weight that you're going to operate on. The other thing you're going to look at is your dimensions of your product, and then you're going to look at the dimensions of your package. Dimensions of your product are typically, if they're an A5, going to be a fiddly number that I don't have memorized, or if they're digest, half page, because it's a zine, it's going to be 5.5 by 8.5, because that's how big a zine is. Your package sizing is then going to be 6 or 7 inches by about 9 inches total. We'll talk specifically about packaging in just 1 second, but packaging does have a cost also. So you're going to take your weight, and you're going to take your dimensions, and you're going to log into whatever carriers you want to use, and you're just going to plug those numbers in. USPS, UPS, FedEx, whatever you want to ship through, you're going to plug those numbers in. If you are just shipping books, you can use media mail. We'll talk about why I don't use media mail for any of my packages in a little bit, but you can use media mail, and if you're doing a project that less than everyone does, you can. We will talk about Pirate Ship specifically in this process. I do think Pirate Ship is a really helpful source. The other one is ShipStation that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about software, equipment, a whole slew of things. But I will say USPS, FedEx, and UPS are the best places to check generally for rates to get a general sense of what it's going to cost. on average, if you are not using something like Pirate Ship, and we'll get to why that may or may not make the most sense in a little bit, you're going to pay about $6 to $10 to ship a zine in the US. Some people will try to use letter mail to do it because it might be flimsy and might make it through. If you're only shipping 100 packages, you're only going to get a few of those returned. If you're shipping thousands of packages and you drop them off at the post office all at the same time, or even hundreds of packages, the post office starts to get really specific about what qualifies as letter mail or not pretty quickly if you're dropping off huge amounts of mail. Whether they should or should not at that point in time, it doesn't matter. I should also clarify everything we're going to talk about going to be U.S. specific. We will talk about international fulfillment explicitly and talk about what things look like from other perspectives, but the rates, the numbers, the other things we throw out are all going to be U.S. specific as we go through. But in U.S., it's going to cost you, again, in that $6 to $8 range. Pirate Ship and some other programs are going to bring that down a little bit. If you're working with a shipping partner, they're going to be able to bring that down a little bit because they're going to have specific rates that they've negotiated that they are going to be able to ship at. And so that's something to know if you're going to look at working with a shipping partner. But with that said, once you have the weights and dimensions, you're going to go plug it in. You're going to get those numbers, and you're going to create a range, right? And that's the range that things are going to cost to ship. The reason you need to do that before your Kickstarter goes live, or while it's live if it already is, or your crowdfunder, is because you want to share that information or share what shipping cost expectations people should have on your page. And let's talk about that. Like I said, I wanted to look at a couple different projects, a couple different ways that they're handling things, and dive in a little bit more on what are some good ways to put this on your page, because you may not have all this information. But once you have a general sense of what it's going to be, you're going to want to go ahead and pad that cost, just the shipping cost, by at least $1. I actually would say it's not bad to pad it by a couple of dollars for a few reasons. One, shipping prices will invariably probably go up unless you're printing right afterwards. And additionally, there are extra fees that you will have for shipping. This is a great page. Let's get a little bit scrolly there real quick. And let's look at how they communicated shipping to people, because I think this is a really phenomenal example of what they're doing to communicate out how shipping is going to work. As shipping costs are in quite a bit of flux, we're collecting shipping data, shipping information outside of Kickstarter, and we'll charge for them when the production run is en route to the fulfillment center, right? Within that month or so before the books arrive, and they're getting ready to ship them out. In U.S. and Canada, it's going to cost $12. In U.S., it's going to cost $12. There is zero VAT. VAT is a value-added tax. It's an import fee. In Canada, it's going to cost $22. To the UK, it's going to cost $22. To the EU, it's going to cost $25. To Australia, it's going to cost $35. New Zealand, $35. And to the rest of the world, $45. Let me tell you something. These numbers, spot on. Spot on to what they should be charging and what it looks like to actually ship something. Now, it's a hardback, so that $12 is a little bit higher than you would averagely see for just a zine, but almost all of the rest of these are exactly what I would recommend. They also have clearly displayed what regions of the world they're shipping to. If you're only shipping to the US, if you do not have an international option that's going to be coming, please let people know that in advance. Let them know that, hey, just back at the digital level, if you're international, we'll try to get into some retailers later. By the way, if y'all have questions while we're going, toss them in the chat, as always. But this is a great representation of what it's going to cost. That is the number one reason that people avoid international shipping for the most part, because paying duties and fees can cause you to have a backer who you ship a $40 book to or a $15 zine to, and they pay $15 to $20 to have it shipped. And then it gets there. And if your duties were not paid in advance, if duties were not paid before it shipped, they are then going to be charged an additional 5 to 25% when they pick it up by their postal service, or it won't be delivered and it'll be returned to you. If they don't notice that, they're going to want you to reship it. They're going to want you to cover the cost of that. And they also may be unhappy about having already paid as much money as they had for a $15 zine, and then having to pay $22 in shipping plus another $5 plus in local customs fees. Custom fees are highly varied. It can depend day to day whether customs get charged for something or not. It can depend how you label things, whether customs does them or not. And there are resources that we're going to talk about if you're working with a fulfillment partner to help overcome all those things. It's the number one reason you might consider with a fulfillment partner. But here's the thing I'll say. If you're planning on having maybe 100 copies of your game go out into the world, and you're not super concerned about international shipping or making it available internationally, and you're just going to do it yourself at home, then don't ship internationally. Just ship in US or do US, Canada only. Keep it simple on yourself. If you are in that hobbyist range where you're just wanting to get things out to family and friends, don't worry about international shipping. If you are trying to pursue this as a major project, a big release, you're hoping to get a few hundred or even thousands of copies of your game out into the world, work with retailers, other things like that, you're going to want to go ahead and consider international shipping in some way, shape, or form. So this is how Constellation handles it. It's very clear. It's very well laid out. Thank you, Keegan. I'd have ripped it. I will now sip it. Let's look at a few different solutions, right? So we want to talk about a few different ways you can approach this. This is just the more traditional way of charging for shipping on Grandmothership, right? Which is, again, we are involved with Grandmothership. We are connected to the project. We are helping with shipping and fulfillment and the print of Grandmothership by Armanda. It is at 133% funded right now. We're super excited as a team about this. If you haven't gone to check it out yet, you can go to crowdfunder.com/Grandmothership. It'll take you right there. If you like the vibes of Honey Heist, if you like the mechanics of Honey Heist mixed with the vibes of Brindlewood Bay and Mothership, you need to go back Grandmothership right away. And you can see it's on here in a couple different places, but let's go to printing and fulfillment. Logistics for printing, shipping, and fulfillment will be managed by the team at Plus One EXP and BrandFox, our parent company. Costs for international fulfillment will include duties where knowable and possible. Once the books are printed and have arrived, you will receive a single-use promotional code good for the cost of the book. You will use that code on the Plus One EXP website to check out and pay for exact shipping at that time. There are no estimates because Armanda doesn't know exactly when she's shipping, whether it's this year or next year. If anybody wants to know, it's going to be that like $6 at the minimum, up to $45 if you live somewhere in the world that is hard to ship to. Most people, if you are international, it's going to be $20 to $25 to ship, but that will include all of the duties. You will not have to pay duties when you go pick it up. And we just set it up to use a promotion code so that we can have people check out through our site and they will know exactly what they are getting charged, when they are getting charged it, and can pay for shipping right then. We set it up so we can live calculate shipping because Crowdfunder does not have the ability to do a pledge manager later, and because BackerKit doesn't currently integrate with Crowdfunder. All those things we hope to see in the future, but it's not the focus of how it works right now. This is a couple places in there, but you could also do this with DriveThruRPG or Lulu or any number of print-on-demand services. You could generate a code after the campaign, and they can use that code to check out and pay for shipping. And DriveThruRPG specifically has regional print hubs, which means it will ship from closer to them, be cheaper, and is a great way to consider the process. You can also work with your fulfillment partner, if you have one, to do the exact same thing. If you have your own website and handle your own shipping, you can do that same thing on your own website also too. So it's another option for a way to handle shipping. Some indication, even if very minimal, on how you want to handle shipping. Keegan, no. Just one more, ttrpg.link/DWG. On the Down We Go campaign, right? We used GameFound, and it has an integrated pledge manager. We went and figured out all the information for the dimensions and the weight of every single item. We built them into the system. It calculated a dynamic weight, and then it charged people based on certain factors. But even you can see, even a year and a little bit ago, the cost for shipping has gone up tremendously in that time. At that point, you could expect 14 to 15 in most situations. And it might be as high as 40, but we've seen those things go up at least 20% across the board. My costs are even a little bit cheaper than a lot of people's because we're part of a shipping company, and so our fees are a little bit less. But those numbers are still low. It's still what I charge people, but it is low, and I'm going to lose some money on shipping. Not a ton because of the way I build my stuff, but around $100 at the end of the process, which for a few hundred shipments, not a big deal. I'm happy to eat that cost across the board. And so that's the thing you should do. So even looking at how shipping and handling will be charged, all those other different pieces. We also looked at regional fulfillment partners, right? So rather than specifically, thank you Gorgor for helping out as links. Thank you Keegan. Glad you were able to be here with us for a little bit. But we are working with regional shipping and printing partners. We printed the books in one place in the end because we didn't hit some of the numbers we needed to do the multiple print run deployment. But we have a Canadian fulfillment partner. We have a European fulfillment partner based out of the UK because of the way that tax things work. And we are working with them to say, hey, we will send you all the books and all the things. We'll give you the orders, and then you will ship out from your location. That brings the cost down substantially for our backers in other parts of the world and keeps things a little bit easier on our side. So it's another way to think about, hey, are there other people who can help me with the shipping process? Lastly, right now, we are helping prepare the backer kit for Barkeep on the Borderlands. Phenomenal project. I was trying to open the actual pledge manager, but apparently, let's see if this does it. That did not do it. We're helping with Barkeep on the Borderland as the fulfillment partner, and we're very excited to help Warren get this out. Some of the conversations that we had with him were really important, and we're going to highlight some of those in a few minutes. But before we jump to fulfillment partners, again, I want to let you know, if you have questions, type them in. We've covered a lot. That's a lot of information. I want to be really mindful of addressing specific questions and issues y'all have. Before we jump to partners, I want to talk about home shipping, and if you want to ship at home, what that looks like and what equipment you need. For that, I need to step off stream for 2 seconds and grab 2 things I left across the room. I'll be right back. All right, we're back. So you want to ship from home, or you think it's going to be best to ship from home. And in all honesty, if you have 100 to 200 backers, I'd highly encourage you to consider just shipping from home. If you think, hey, I'm going to put out 1 or 2 or 3, 4 zines a year, think about a fulfillment partner, but you can also just think about investing in a better setup to make it a little bit easier to ship from home. But if I was going to just do 100, I would engage in the process of hand labeling them. I would write notes thanking people. I would get all those things ready, and I would go to my post office, and I would buy the postage, and I would be done. That is what I would do. Or if you want to get a little bit more savvy, you can get online, print out the postage, and be done. I wouldn't look at online shipping stuff. I wouldn't look at a whole lot of other things. I would make it as simple and easy as possible, and I wouldn't invest in any additional equipment. I think if you're doing 100 or less zines, that's fine. I think if you're going up to 200, you're probably okay doing that. It's going to take you a weekend, but it's time well spent, and it can be a really enjoyable process, connecting with and seeing the names of the people who backed you, seeing the family, the friends, and the new fans of yours who did that. Now, if you're over 200, it's worth starting to think about investing in specific equipment or looking at a fulfillment partner, especially if you're going to be doing this in an ongoing manner. Let's talk about some of the basic equipment and programs that I would look at to invest in. Now, I wouldn't buy them on almost any of the sites that I'm going to pull up, but I'm going to show them to you on the sites that I'm going to pull up so that they're easy to find. We don't need to link any of this, Gorgor. I just want to go through a couple of things. The number one thing you're going to want to consider is a label printer. Now, this is going to mean buying labels also, but this prints 4x6 labels. It connects to shipping software, and it lets me print things off with my return address and other things like that, and then put them right onto the envelope that I'm shipping with. I am a huge fan of this model right here, the Rollo label printer, is my go-to preferred model. It's slightly more expensive than the other ones, but the speed, the consistency, and how well it has served me over I did 4 years of home fulfillment for a home business, where we would ship out hundreds of orders a week, and during peak we would ship out thousands of orders a week. It served me well during that time, and I highly, highly, highly encourage people to check out Rollo as the brand, Rollo. If you want to print from home. You will need these labels to go with it, right? The labels that go in there, they come on rolls or in flats. They look like these. There is an additional cost for that. We'll look at those costs. The Rollo is about $200. You can often get them refurbished or buy them secondhand, though. And even buying them secondhand, as long as they work, I would have no qualms about it. I would easily do it. The other model that you might look at that is more commonly talked about is the ZiMo. The ZiMo is oftentimes what different people will tell you you need for services. It's a little bit cheaper. These things, in my experience, break pretty dang quickly. So just something to consider. They break really readily. That's why I don't like them. I went through 3 of them before I switched over to the Rollo, and that was in about a year of printing. So I don't like them. They have a decent reputation, but at $189, absolutely not where I would put my money. But those are 2 brands you can look at. And again, there are cheaper brands out there. I don't know this brand at all, but this one's only $118. You can find some for as inexpensive as $89. I think the Rollo is the best there is. It is the most expensive there is, but we're talking about scores of dollars. And again, this might be why you pad $1 on shipping, so that you can afford to buy this printer even if you get 200 copies of your zine backed, right? So again, something to consider. The other thing you're going to need to buy is those is the labels themselves. They'll oftentimes, depending on how much they are, be about $20 to $40 for a few hundred of them, enough to get you through your project for sure. And then the last thing that I would encourage you to buy, though, again, not from this company specifically, because I don't like Uline. They easy to access, great service. If you buy them from here, I won't judge you, but I do not like their owner at all. But it is an easy place to buy things. This specific type of mailer is what I would recommend shipping your zines in. Even at our main fulfillment center, if it's a single zine, this is what I want it to go out in. These are a 7x9, oftentimes it'll say like CD size, lay flat mailer. It's one of the things I left across the room. They are this big. At 7x9, you can fit 2 to 3 copies of a zine in here, and one fits in just fine along with the packing slip. They are waterproof. They are rigid so that they do not bend easily. And so rather than having to polybag or put in cardboard or do other things that are additional work, I would use one of these. This is the reason I would never ship via letter mail in the US, because it's rigid. And if you stick a piece of cardboard in an envelope, it'll become rigid. Then it may not qualify into a postal inspector's eyes as a letter. There are limits on the rigidity and thickness of a letter. This is thin enough to send as a letter. It's small enough to send as a letter. But the fact that it will not bend or warp is the thing that means that sometimes they will say, that's not a letter, and they will return it to me. So I always ship these as a package, which means it is not something that qualifies as letter mail. It means the cost is $2 or $3 more. But for me, making sure I ship correctly and supporting the postal system, which I am a fan of being able to use, is good. But this is the specific mailer that I would encourage you to check out. So I'm a fan of the Rollo printer. I'm a fan of the 7x9, though you might want to pick up some 9x10s if you have some bigger products. Or again, if you're shipping an A4 book, get a bigger one. They have all kinds of sizes, 10x12, other things like that will serve you just as well. So these white self-seal stay flats, meaning I do not need additional tape, that are waterproof and rigid, are the ones that I highly recommend people picking up. It's about $50 for 100 of them. Again, a reason why you might want to pad your shipping by a couple of dollars is so that you can cover the cost of doing this. Now, All that being said, that's the specific materials that you're going to want to consider getting in order to be able to ship your zine if you're going to do it at home. And I would say even if you're just going to work with the post office, you still want to pick up these as what you're shipping with. It's going to make your life real easy, and it's going to make stuffing and filling the envelopes go as quick as possible. The two programs that I would primarily look at it for home shipping are ShipStation, which we actually use even when we're processing some manual orders at the company that I work at. ShipStation is a great program. Is a great. I was trying to be on their main page. ShipStation is a great piece of shipping software. It used to be one of the primary ones. There was some regulation that shifted October, largely because of some beef between ShipStation and the U.S. government that has caused their rates to go up a little bit as far as shipping cost goes. So they are no longer the cheapest option. The cheapest option and the most common one, though I do not have a lot of experience with it, is Pirate Ship. Pirate Ship is going to give you, typically, if you are shipping at home, the cheapest shipping rates you can get. My primary reason for avoiding it is because I don't understand their business model at all. Like, I don't understand how they're able to offer the rates that they have. I don't know what they're doing. I mean, I understand some of it. Like, I understand that they're constantly price shopping and doing a lot of other things. It feels like a loop that's going to eventually get shut down. That said, exploit it while you can. So Pirate Ship as a primary resource, if you're looking at shipping from home, is a great way to go. So those are some of the base tools I would look at and talk about, but you're going to basically be able to import all of your orders and your backers into a piece of software like that. And then you're going to be able to just execute on something like a Rollo, a whole long line of labels, stuff them, print them, slap the label on them. Shipping will already be included. You'll have to put shipping money into it, like use your credit card or debit card to add money to it, and ship that out. So those programs make it really easy to use this software to do fulfillment at home. I can do with a friend helping, or one of my kids helping me, 500 to 800 projects or shipments in a day, using the different tools and resources that we have, having done it a number of times. As long as your project is not too complex, that should be pretty easy. But home fulfillment can be really stressful. It's a lot of work. It does take most people a lot more time than it takes me because I have all the equipment and I did it for years. And even then, last December for Repugnant, the Postal Service totally lost like 30% of our orders that we sent out. Even with shipping, even with tracking, we could not figure out exactly what was going on with those. It caused the project to get incredibly extended, and I had to handle all of that by myself. It can be incredibly nerve-wracking. So the last thing we want to look at is when to start working with a fulfillment partner. You do have to do a little bit more manual input with Pirate Ship, but not a ton. Like, it does do some integration for you, but it does rate shop every single time as opposed to being a flat rate based on weight and shipping zone. So Trash, great question in the chat, but it is pretty user friendly. It is not as user friendly as ShipStation, but the rates are better. So again, it's going to be oftentimes a choice of how you're spending time versus money. So let's talk a little bit about working with a fulfillment partner. And when I say a fulfillment partner, that might be a 3PL like BrandFox, our parent company. If you want to talk specifically about support for your zine project, you can email me at tony@brandfoxllc.com. I'll talk a little bit about some of our rates towards the end also too. But you could work with just a general 3PL, third-party logistics company like BrandFox. There are a number of them out there. There are some that are even geared specifically at RPGs. If you're looking at other ones, you might talk to Exalted Funeral, who could help with fulfillment through Flying Cloud, which is the 3PL that they work with. You could talk to Floating Chair Club, who does great work, and you could shipping out zines all over the place and is a really phenomenal person to work with also. So you could work with us, you could work with Floating Chair Club, you could work with Exalted Funeral and Flying Cloud. There are options out there, not just ours. And I want to be clear, there are a lot of great options out there. And then again, if you're going to work with one fulfillment partner, your question should be, do I want to work with one fulfillment partner? Or do I want to work with multiple regional partners? If you're looking at international partners, Igloo Tree is one that I would highly recommend, along with Soul Muppet Publishing. Both are really great. Both have different cost structures. I like the way that Soul Muppet does things a lot. I think Matt Sanders is a genius at logistics, and we're really excited to work with them whenever we get a chance. But we also do some work with Igloo Tree also too, and we have a lot of clients who work with Igloo Tree for international. The best thing you can do if you're looking to fulfill to the EU and UK and the Nordic states is to find a UK-based fulfillment center, because if you are just shipping books, it is the cheapest way to do it. The tariffs and the fees that they have are significantly lower going from the UK up to other locations than they are in the EU to EU locations. And they will help you manage all the different VAT and other fees that you need to look at and reduce your overall cost, right? So, and again, we're going to talk about why VAT matters a little bit more in a second. But let's say you wanted to work with a partner like BrandFox, right? Let's say that you are working with us. Some of the things you're going to want to know, they're going to want to know your weights and your dimensions, that same base information. You're typically going to get a quote from them. That quote's going to have a couple different pieces. It's going to have a breakdown of the cost per shipment, and it's going to have a breakdown of the shipping rates. Now, the shipping rates, I've already shared a little bit with you about, right? Like those shipping rates that they quoted earlier, and the shipping rates that I've been using the entire time, that $6 to $10 US, that $20 to Canada or to Mexico, the $22 to the UK, the $25 to the EU, and the $30 to $45 anywhere else in the world rates are pretty standard out there for a lot of things. They may be able to bring those down some, but you're going to see things kind of live in that range. And it's what you need to expect for anything between a half-pound project, which most zine projects will be, up through a 2-pound project, which some kind of premium or a lot of add-on projects may end up having, right? Board game projects can go even higher than that, but for RPGs, you're typically living in that 1 to maybe 3-pound range for most of your product shipments. So those rates will vary a little bit with weight, and dimensions matter, but you don't have to worry about too much about the dimensions impacting your cost. It's mostly the weight, and those two things interact with each other in the shipping weight, and the shipping in a way with a rate that's called a dim divisor. You don't need to worry about any of that, right? You need to know your weight and your dimensions, and your weight's almost always going to dictate what your price for shipping is. So you're going to get a quote from them. Like for us, it's going to cost about $2.80 to $4 as our base rate for every package that we ship out for you. Why is that? That covers our labor costs. That covers the packaging. That covers the picks, and we'll break all this down for you in just a second. And it helps us be able to survive as a company, right? The shipping rates are a completely separate thing that we have to pay out. And almost every single fulfillment company has a markup on shipping because it's part of how they manage their overall cost also too. It's a normal part of doing business, but you will see them vary anywhere between universally $2 at a minimum up through $5 or $6 per package. And so for us at BrandFox, coming in at that $280 to $350 range for most fulfillment projects is something that we're really proud of. It's towards the bottom end of the cost, and it's what we charge per package. We will work with you to set up specifically how you can incorporate that into your overall cost. So if it costs $6 to ship for shipping rates, you could go ahead and say, hey, we're just going to charge an additional $2, right? And that's going to cover the fee for BrandFox, and then we're going to be set on the total cost of the project. My goal when I work with folks to set up their cost for shipping for their project, and right now, like I said, we've been working with Warren specifically on Barkeep on the Borderlands, is not only do we cover all of our costs, but that there's a little bit of money left over so that you know that you didn't lose money on the shipping process. And there is work that goes in for the creator on the shipping process, and it is okay for the creator to make money during the shipping process, not lose money. But we also always talk about the fact that you can subsidize shipping if you want to, meaning you can pay a portion of the shipping to reduce it across the board, or you can subsidize to certain parts of the world, and we can break that stuff down for you as a shipping partner. But for, $2.80 to $3.50. And the reason there's a variance is depends on what goes in the package. But there's a lot of things you get for that. It means we're going to buy all the packaging, we're going to do all the labor, we're going to do all the shipping, we're going to use our systems, and we're going to negotiate the shipping rates for you, meaning that your cost for shipping for your backers is going to be lower than if you just go to the post office or use ShipStation, right? Pirate Ship might get you lower, but there's more of your time and investment that's going into that as you go. You can't batch ship in the same way that you can when you're working with a fulfillment partner or using some other programs. So we're going to do all that work on your behalf. And for us specifically with Plus One, we can also give you a web store to sell from after fulfillment for your project. So if there are books left over and you just want to sell them, we can immediately matriculate them into Plus One and make them available for purchase. Even while fulfillment's happening, we can do pre-sales, and then we can push those out right after fulfillment ends, and you can start making money on the additional books that you have and start trying to sell through them. So there's a lot of advantages to working with a third-party logistics company, but they're going to have basically a base cost for order, which is going to be around $1. On top of that, they're going to have packaging costs. So the cost of the mailers, the lay flat, all those other things, they're going to want to cover that cost. So they're going to have those costs built in, right? And then they're going to have what they call pick fees. And pick fees literally mean how many SKUs do you have? How many specific products do you have going in? Do you have a softback and a hardback? Do you have a softback, a bookmark, and a patch? All those different things, those are called picks. Every single time they have to pick one up off the shelf. And there's usually a fee associated with that to cover the cost of the labor, to pay somebody well to walk around and do that labor for you on your behalf. All those things are flattened down into an order fee. And we include a certain amount of picks in our base order, 3. And then after that third pick, there's going to be additional costs for everything that comes off the shelf. So you have 6 items, then you're going to look at paying a little bit extra. So for Barkeep on the Borderland, we worked with Warren because Warren had a bunch of coasters, but we have a kitting department, meaning we can receive things in and then put them together in packages. And then when they get pulled off the shelf, they only count as one pick. So we're kitting all of Warren's stuff in advance. He's paying the labor cost for that. And then those become one pick, and it reduces the overall cost of shipping. There's a ton of complexity that comes in when we're talking about this thing. The best thing, if you want to work with a fulfillment partner, is to reach out to us, to reach out to the other people that I mentioned before, and ask them, what are your rates? And tell them a little bit about your project. For me, I love to schedule a call to talk through the different options, to give you specific rates, to let you know exactly what it would look like to work with us so that you can make the best decision. And if we're not going to be the best partner for you, I'm happy to point you in the direction of other people like the ones I've already mentioned, as well as a few others who might be a better resource for you. But there are a lot of things that we do offer that no one else who you're going to look for is. And some of those things are like kitting, working with wholesale, trying to get your book into distribution, and helping manage it in our web store through Plus One after the fact. There's a lot of value adds that we have that some other people do some of, but not everybody does all of. So again, this is a very high-level conversation around shipping. I'm going to pause a little bit here to say, hey, do we have specific questions? Are there things that we need answered? Do we want to know more about VAT, which actually I didn't cover? Another important, but if you have questions, go ahead and drop them into the chat now. If you're watching this later, drop them into the comments and I'll come back and I'll respond to them. And again, you can also email me, tony@brandfoxllc.com, to talk about any of these specifically for your project if you want help and support. And we're willing to work with any size of project. So, again, I want you to be mindful of whether it's worth it for you to work with a fulfillment partner. But if you have a few hundred copies that are going out, or 200 copies that are going out, or 150 copies that are going out, but you're looking for a web store after the fact that you can sell out of, please talk to us about those possibilities and potentials. We would still love to work with you. Don't feel like you have to have 1,000+ backer project like Barkeep on the Borderland in order to qualify for use of our services. We're happy to work with you no matter what. And then I'm going to dive into that. Yeah, Cassie, let's talk about alternatives to BackerKit and how we gather that information. I'm going to touch on VAT first, but if you folks have questions, keep them coming in. I want to talk specifically about VAT a little bit more. Like I said, it's a value-added tax. It's an import or tariff fee. one of the major advantages that working with a third-party fulfillment company is going to bring in is that they're most likely going to have access to a resource called Passport. Passport allows you to do duties paid in advance, right? So duties paid in advance rather than duties paid on delivery. And that means that we can actually take your international shipments and we can build the duty fees into the cost of shipment so that you can charge them in your backer kit, so that we can include them in the cost of shipping, so that when they arrive to your to their final destination, that they will be cheaper than if they had paid duties on site and you're only asking people to do it one time. The major reason that duties tend to be more on site is that they charge you an additional amount to process the duties because things weren't done in advance. So the fact that third-party fulfillment companies have access to resources and partners and integrations like Passport make it tremendously advantageous to you to work with one if you have a larger project. So it's a really important thing as you look at how we might tackle import fees, VATs, and other things like that, make the process simpler for you, is to look for a fulfillment partner that has access to Passport specifically. Do I know of any alternatives to BackerKit? Yeah, a ton of them. And the reason I brought up GameFound initially, the project that we hosted Down We Go on, is that it has an integrated pledge manager in it. So right now, we're looking at the original pledge page, right? The actual page that it shows typically if people go to GameFound right now is the late pledge. Let's go. Is the late pledge version, right? And so this is for people who missed the campaign. GameFound is free as a pledge manager other than your processing costs. It is more fiddly than BackerKit. So BackerKit is not the only one out there. There's also one that's literally called Pledge Manager. Pledge Manager has a lot of good integrations to it that will help feed over into things like ShipStation, Pirate Ship, and other things like that. They also have a full customer service team. They are a little bit more affordable, a little bit more hands-on, but I do not actually think that their interface is as good or as friendly as BackerKit's is. BackerKit's is the most expensive. It is the most expensive for a reason. There are also people who do not like BackerKit. And again, you could also look at working with a fulfillment partner and just providing a code and charging for shipment on delivery. So Cassie, if you want to talk about that, you know where to find me. But also, if that's not what you want to do, that's okay also too. So I would say look at GameFound, look at Pledge Manager, and look at BackerKit as the three primary places that you can go to find information about their Pledge Manager process. So those are three that I would say I feel pretty confident in most people's ability to navigate and have a good experience with, even though they'll each offer distinct advantages or disadvantages to each other. If you have your own website, you can use it as a pledge manager also too by doing the same thing with a download code. You'll just have to have people go check out around the time you're looking to ship. So again, we've covered a lot. There's been a lot of really great information. Well, I mean, I say that, I guess I'm just patting myself on the back at that point in time. I feel like we've covered a good amount. That was a lot of information. I'm going to give us a couple more minutes for questions, and then we're going to hop off. But again, this is one of the things that people ask the most about, had the biggest questions on. This was just basically an intro and crash course into how do I do shipping. How do I manage it? What are the questions I need to ask? And again, we always want to return back and kind of ground it in what are you hoping to get out of the experience of producing your game? If this is for family and friends, if you're going to live in that hobbyist space, then doing fulfillment yourself can be a really rewarding process, and I'd highly encourage it. If you want to be a professional game designer, if this is something you're growing a brand or growing your reputation, again, you're going to want to invest a little bit more, and you're going to want to start considering fulfillment partners. But it's one of the reasons we started with the question back at the very beginning of this year's Zine Month. I've made a game, now what? And the question is, what do you want to get out of making games? And so you've got to ask yourself some of those questions. So again, I want to highly encourage y'all to ask yourself that as you're looking at some of the different shipping elements. Any tips? Signal Station wants to know, any tips for shipping my RPG in the fandom sense? Imagine it kissing other RPGs. Yeah, so like Grandmother Ship is a ship about old ladies on a ship, but the RPG itself is a ship of Mothership, Honey Heist, and Brindlewood Bay. So I mean, there's a lot of shipping going on there. So if you tell me what your project is, I will suggest a ship for it. 100%. So you tell me your project. Die Grave Robber Die. Coming soon in print to +1 EXP. I'm bummed we didn't get it done before Jason dropped the Fear of the Black Dragon episode, but now even more excited about the project. Die Grave Robber Die meets Horse Girl is now Nay Stomp Grave Robber is what is the ship of that one. Yeah, any other shipping questions that we tagline, you can't beat this dead horse, correct? Any other questions that we have about shipping? Otherwise, we're going to log off. I am going to be headed out to Ohio this week. I will be available online. And if you were trying to get in touch with me over the last couple of weeks, my cell phone was off, was not working, and I was buried at work, so I was not super active online. We do have some great streams coming up. We've got Linda Kodega coming on this weekend to talk on the Cult stream. About doing a character study there, building a imagined version of Linda in the RPG system of their choice. Very excited to have Linda on here with us and to be TikTok friends. Well, Linda, if you haven't backed Grandmothership yet, go to crowdfunder.com/Grandmothership. If you have not ordered Down We Go yet, if you missed the crowdfunding project, you can go to ttrpg.link/DWG. It'll take you straight to the +1 EXP page where you can go ahead and order a hardback, a softback, or a damaged copy for $5 less, even though it looks cooler because it's just distressed because it got shipped poorly by Mixam. They're all up and available over there. Also, we really want to ask people, the VOD will be up on YouTube right afterwards. We do really want to ask our community to come in and just start supporting us a little bit more. We know we've moved over to being a little, owned by another company, but that means we need to do better due diligence on supporting the overall brand. In the past, I was able to financially support everything we did at +1 because of the work that happened for one of my other companies. We want +1 to become a lot more self-sustaining because of the work that we feel we do in the indie RPG community to make an impact. Things like this video. If you want to support us over at Ko-fi, that's great, but the number one best thing you can do is just go check out our website. Go to +1exp.com. Look for a zine or a project on there that stands out to you that you think looks really cool. Maybe it's Into the Riverlands by Josh Hiddy. Maybe it's some of the Meat Castle projects that we have coming up over there, coming soon to Meat Castle's new little mini store within our store. Maybe it's anything on there, including bespoke alchemical-powered beard bombs. All those things are great, but we'd really love your support over there to keep being able to be sustainable as a channel and as a company, to help continually to move new indie projects by emerging and established designers out into the space. We love doing print partnerships, but that means selling the games that we have and being able to showcase the value that we have within the community. So if you're able to do that, that's great. With that said, more than anything, we do want to thank Constellation RPG and the folks over at Hit Point Press for supporting this stream specifically, for helping make this workshop happen. Also for putting together this amazing project that combines 12 different zines by 12 different designers into a hardback anthology. The team behind this are some of my absolute favorite people. It's only got a couple days left over on Kickstarter. We'd love to have them know that we sent you over there, and that's over at ttrpg.link/ConstellationKS. We'll take you right there and let them know that we are the ones who sent you. So please go do that. If you can, let them know we sent you. It makes them happy. It keeps us happy. But I really appreciate everybody in the community, everybody who showed up today. If you're watching this later and you have questions, go ahead and drop in the chat. We'll respond as we are able to. But this has been Tony Vasinda, not as Chief Alchemist, but as Brand Czar from BrandFox LLC, talking about how you can ship your RPG. And until next time, keep it indie, keep it weird, keep it Zine Month.